Yeah.
Cool. Well, fill me in for this last week. How did we do? Biggest wins, biggest struggles?
Weekend was terrible. Um, I would just say from a habit calories logging perspective, because we had plans with neighbors on Saturday night, and I think I had texted you. And I didn't eat terrible. I don't feel like I overindulged on food. I did have a few more drinks than I would normally have. Um, but just instead of like logging, I just didn't log. I didn't take pictures because I was just being with people.
Do you remember what you had to where you could just go back and like log it in?
Um, no, not really. I mean, basically, I guess, but not exact.
I mean, I always just.
And again, it wasn't terrible, but.
I mean, I always just tell, like, I always recommend with clients, I mean, even with myself too, right? I mean, it's so easy to have, like, when you have these, like, social things, it's so easy to, like, not want to track or take pictures or whatever, but, like, even if you can just go back in, like, that night after, because, like, not wanting to do it in the moment of the social thing, like, I totally get it. But if you can just go back in and try to track it as best as you can, at least that in terms of like the habit tracker, it's not just like a blank day, you know what I mean? Like we still have kind of like ballpark range there. And if anything, I always overestimate, right? Like I always try to overestimate on my portion sizes if if I don't know, just so that if anything, I'm maybe higher than what I actually was, you know?
I mean, I have most of the day in there. I just don't have that dinner time in there. And Sunday, even though it wasn't great eating wise with the things that my family gave me, I still tracked it. And that's somewhat accurate. I don't feel like it was the greatest either, but
Well, and
other
so
than that, though, I mean, I got right back on track on Monday. So
I mean, I think like breaking it down and really defining like what you know, you're like the weekend was terrible. That was the initial statement, right? So it's like breaking that down and figuring out okay, like what about that is terrible. I mean, so for you, it's like time and time and time and time and time again, like we've heard it a million times now of like the family, right? And the family, what the family gives you to eat, right? The family could sit there and give you these things to eat a million times, and as long as you focus on prioritizing like the portion size of it and tracking it, so you have the awareness of what the numbers are, then it's perfectly fine. Because if not, you're always gonna feel this guilt of like saying no and not taking what your kids give you or whatever, right? And this way, it's like there's no restriction. Like you can have any of it, just make sure that you're mindful of the portion size and mindful of the portion size. A lot of times people think that they can do that intuitively, which is complete BS. It's like, no, like you need to actually know how much is in it from a numerical standpoint, right? Because when we argue like the quality and quantity side of nutrition, if you have a piece of cake, like of course like the quality is not going to be amazing, but like if you can control the other side of the equation, the quantity, right? Now at least you can keep the consistency there that you need rather than both of those things going out, right? So
yeah,
I just think I mean I think that's a reframe for you that we've got to have because I mean look, you're gonna have a lot more birthday parties and Christmas and Thanksgiving and all of these things, right? And we've got to start having more and more and more wins with all of these things rather than feeling like every single one of these events is a terrible day or whatever, because it's not. Like if you compare
I
this,
think that it's hard. I mean, like realistically in those things, staying under your calories and doing it is super hard.
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, because those things, I mean, are not cheap on a calorie perspective.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 100%. I mean, that's the thing, right? When food quality.
If I my calories, that's a terrible day for me.
But you have to. I think
maybe it's not really a terrible day, but if I'm over my calories, I'm not following the rules, so that's terrible.
Yeah, but it's not necessarily a positive way to look at that, right? Like you've got to think to yourself, like if you go over your calories, you're not breaking the rules. There's no rules. Like it's not like there's literally no rules. You just got to think to yourself, like, okay, if you go on over your calories and that happens one day, right? And that happens a few times throughout the year, that's not going to be, like, that's not the thing to be worried about. That's not the conversation to talk about. Like, the conversation is, what are you doing the rest of the time? That's why every single time the holidays come up, November, December, January, that 3-month stretch of time, on average, Americans gain 15 pounds. Now, how many actual holidays are there? Let's just call it, and maybe there's, a little more dependent upon what you celebrate, but let's just call it Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. What is that, 7? Maybe 7 to 10 days. You didn't gain 15 pounds in 7 to 10 days. You gained it over the 3 months, right? So it's like the mindset is like, oh, it's the holidays. And really what it is, it's like, no. Like enjoy the holidays, those 7 to 10 days or whatever, right? And make sure that all the rest of the days are dialed in. I was just talking